and welcome to the 199th edition of the Illegal Motion College Football Podcast. In Nashville, Tennessee, I'm the professor, Matt Perkins. And a flare route across the Harpeth River from me here in the Music City, it's our own offensive coordinator, the coach, Corey Burton.
What's up, guys? I feel like it's been ages since I've been on, and really I've just missed one show. So glad to be back with you guys in the current state that I'm in. Well, not anymore, but the current state that I was in about 24 hours ago and 48 hours ago, even worse. A flare route's about all I can muster right now in this heat. So next week I'll hit a double move on you and score a touchdown, but it's about all I can muster is to get a first down. So.
All right. Well, then picking up the slack for you on our last show, the third amigo in the second city, a man who in an ideal world would store all of his liquor in a globe. It's our intrepid blogger from Big Ten and Counting, Josh Cook.
I mean, I don't even know where to go with that one. Let's just start the show.
Nuts. We have to go no huddle today, seeing as that we did not get a full recap show in earlier this week due to –
Well, one of us chose to not drink water all week.
Yes, Coach. Thank you for being dehydrated. So we might as well just give the folks at home a quick little recap of last week. And before we jump into this week, let's start, speaking of the coach, in the SEC. Not a ton of big news coming out of the conference. I suppose the biggest thing would be Auburn looking like a potential top 5 team in really just putting the hammer down on Mississippi State.
Yeah, I was not expecting that. I was going to tune into that game excited because I kind of figured another game we're going to talk about was going to I wasn't surprised about the other game that we're going to talk about later ending up the way it did. But, I mean, I turned it on. It was already 21-0. I was like, what in the hell? Auburn was just clicking on all cylinders. The defensive line was suffocating Mississippi State. Bo Nix is starting to look like a veteran. What else? I mean, it's just everything's clicking. They look Saturday, and it was unreal.
Yeah, they look excellent. I was at Northern Illinois and Vandy, in case you were wondering how I spent my Saturday. Vandy got their first win of the season. It wasn't pretty, but their defense looked pretty solid throughout. Alabama just put up a ton of points and yards in their slaughter of Ole Miss. Devontae Smith, 5 touchdowns receiving. Florida beat Towson. Who cares about that? Texas A&M beat in conference opponent, and South Carolina took out Kentucky pretty handily, 24-7.
Yeah, that one surprised me a little bit too. I thought that was going to be a little bit more back and forth, but it just doesn't seem. It just seems like Kentucky just all the wind out of their sails when starting quarterback goes down. It just crumpled them. And Sawyer Smith, poor guy, just can't. It's just not getting it done.
Yeah, Josh, over in the Big Ten, the big game heading into the weekend was Ohio State, Nebraska, and that was ugly from the get-go for the Huskers.
No, we said what the Huskers needed to do to even be competitive was play mistake-free football, and they could not have turnovers. They had about 1 million turnovers, and that was the game.
It was, and Ohio State just jumped on them early, 38-0 at halftime, and it was over then. Josh, I picked Maryland to cover the spread against Penn State. I did not see.
I don't think they did.
Yeah, no, unless you got them plus 60 somehow. Because my Lord, that was a beatdown to end all beatdowns. Almost as bad as the State University of New Jersey's loss in the Big House. Michigan was able to bounce back after losing in Madison 2 weeks ago to beat Rutgers handily. Michigan State.
Well, I mean, don't just gloss over that. Rutgers had their first coach fired.
Okay.
As a result,
well, okay. Then let's go there.
I mean, it's really simple. He's one of the worst football coaches in terms of results. Obviously, he did well as a defensive coordinator. He's considered to be a stand-up guy and all that stuff. It just didn't work at Rutgers. It was bad enough that I don't see him ever getting another head coaching job unless it's at a very little school, steps out of a power conference type thing, because his time at Rutgers was just unbelievably bad. Yeah, I mean, there's really no other way to put it. So
I'm not sure how he gets hired as anything higher at a Power 5 school is anything better than a position coach at this point.
Well, I mean, he did have some good defense, to say the least.
Okay.
But just, I mean, to put it in perspective how bad he was, he finished 8-32, 3-26, and I think it's pretty safe to say he's by far the worst coach results-wise in the Big Ten since Northwestern's Rick Venturi, who, for those of you that don't know who he was, 78, 79, 80, he was with Northwestern, and he went a 1-31-1 and went 0-26-1 in conference. He had 2 0-9 Big Ten seasons. So did Chris Ash. So yeah, it's about probably about a season and a half too late. I think it was pretty apparent that he was not the right man for the job, and I would have fired him after the 2018 season for sure. I'm not sure what they got to see in these 4 games. But.
Well, I was going to say, Coach, about that, 2 things. First of all, firing the guy 4 games into a season seems a bit ludicrous to me. You haven't even made it halfway through the season, you're firing the coach. I mean, you're completely throwing away the season. Not that they had anywhere to go to begin with. But secondly, looking at this program going forward, I'm of the opinion that they need to hire someone who has been a head coach before. They can't go a hot coordinator route. They need to go with someone who has been able to build up a program from the depths of a place like maybe somewhere like Eastern Michigan. Eastern Michigan up until a couple of years ago was one of the worst football programs in the country, and now they've gone to 2 bowls in the last 3 years, Josh, something like that.
Yeah,
and
who'd be a perfect fit at Rutgers? Somebody who brought a program from obscurity into MAC relevance would be Lance Leopold at Buffalo.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Be a perfect hire because he's just going right across the state, across the line into New Jersey. And,
I mean, to be fair, it's an 8-hour drive from Buffalo to Piscataway.
Yeah, I mean right down the road, so to speak. I think that would be somebody that would know how to rebuild a program. And I mean, you're right there next to New York City. You're in a fairly, as far as the region goes, you're in the most talent-rich state in that region. So if you can at least come in and do some good things, you might be able to take some of those recruits that, you might be able to steal 1 or 2 recruits away from like Penn State or Pitt, or where they go out of state. They might choose, okay, so Rutgers is on the rise, and they might be able to build something slowly, but I think he's somebody that knows how to do things. You can't have somebody in that situation learn on the job because they'll never make it.
I'll tell you a name that's been batting around message boards. This is not
Greg Schiano.
Well, no, his name has, but
he did quit the Patriots so he could get the Rutgers job.
But no, this is not a rumor. This is just like aspirational claims by random people on a message board. I'm not saying there's any smoke here, but seen it on Rutgers message boards. I've also seen it, believe it or not, on Maryland boards. Who would have guessed that after a 2-2 start that brought their coach's record to 5-33, that honeymoon wasn't going to last very long. But Jeff Monken's name, both fan bases have a segment that are basically writing off the ability to ever recruit good enough offensive lines for the Big Ten. and have basically gone, well, let's do the triple option thing because then we can just cut block and we're good to go.
Paul Johnson is available.
He is, but, he's been retired for a month.
You can hire Spurrier. He's available.
That's not triple option.
Willie Fritz.
Willie Fritz? There's no way he leaves Tulane.
There's no way he leaves Tulane for Rutgers for a variety of reasons.
In all seriousness, I think Willie Fritz, having coached pretty much, as far as I know, in the South, I think he's waiting for either ACC or SEC job to open up.
Yeah.
And, I mean, there's worse places to be than Bourbon Street. So I think he's in a pretty safe place for his happiness.
I would certainly
hope
I
mean,
so.
that would be an interesting search on kind of seeing what they do. I think they need to hire somebody close to that region. It'd be interesting. Maybe
Randy
go
Edsel.
like maybe. I hear he's available.
Soon to be.
Maybe see what UConn's doing.
Going to D2.
They could hire.
I have a perfect solution, by the way. Connecticut wants some wins.
Go hire the University of Maine's coach.
No, I've got an amazing plan.
Okay,
what's your
plan?
Little school in Iowa, Grinnell, has had a rash of injuries.
Yes,
they're down to like 25 players who are healthy, so they've decided to forfeit the remainder of the season. You slide Connecticut into that D3 schedule, they might pick up a win or two.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, that game at College is going to be really tough.
Hey, my dad played football for Grinnell.
I know.
The proud pioneers. They're more of a basketball school, to be fair.
Listen, College, the alma mater of one Fred Jackson, former Buffalo Bill grade.
Do you know their mascot? Do you know College's mascot?
I believe you're going to tell me.
It's the College Cohawks.
The Cohawks.
COE-HAWKS.
Did you just say the Cohogs?
Cohawks.
Cohawks.
Huh.
College. That's almost as good as the Mobile Bay Bears.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Somehow that gets us back to the ACC. Clemson barely held on because of a failed 2-point conversion by the Tar Heels in Chapel Hill. Josh, personally, love the concept, hate the play call there. How did you feel about the 2-point conversion?
My sentiments exactly. Got to go for the win there if you're Mac Brown. You're rebuilding, shows confidence in the kids, shows aggressiveness. Love it. Just probably a little too cute on that play call going after Clemson's strength on the line.
Yeah, why would you run the triple option there? You run a passing play with – coach, 2-point conversion, you're always going to run some sort of play where there's quarterback is probably scrambling one direction or another, correct?
Yeah, I'm probably
roll out.
I'm probably setting up on the left hash and either kind of throwing a smash concept and just laying one up on the back pylon for my best guy, or I'm going to sprint out and see if I can't get an open pass or just run it in. So a play action bootleg.
You know what I love?
A lot of times works.
You know what I love down there, especially a 2-point conversion. You do a pick play. Mm-hmm. Your guy's wide open. If the ref calls it, you just go and kick the point after.
Yeah,
seems like a win-win. And if the ref misses it, then hey, you've just won the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also on those play action bootlegs, the over drag that comes from the run fake from the tight end is usually wide open. So if the quarterback rolls out, everybody's going to sprint heavily to the quarterback. If he just sets his feet, turns and fires it to the drag, that's usually open.
Yeah, I don't feel like you're doing a lot of play action there necessarily. I think everyone knows that it's going to be a pass play coming for the most part, which is maybe why they went with the triple option. Maybe that was the thought, but I still feel like you got to go with some sort of rollout play in that situation.
On the flip side, just Clemson seems off, and
Lawrence is definitely off.
Yeah, I think it's just maybe a little bit of a sophomore slump. I don't know how focused he was on stuff. Seemed like whenever I was watching something on ESPN, it was like he was at the Manning quarterback camp, or he's doing this or doing that. And, they're still one of the best teams, and Lawrence's track record is pretty dang good. I don't think there's cause for concern. It also helps that they're in the ACC and not the SEC. So it wouldn't surprise me if they run the table and win the ACC and make it to the playoffs again. But just, I don't know, something to keep an eye on as we go throughout the rest of the season. Another thing to keep an eye on as we go through the rest of the season. Justin Fuente's job status, if we're going to talk about the ACC.
Yeah, well, that was my next question. Is I mean, getting smoked by Duke at home is not a very good look for anyone.
And Beamer's got to be like, come on, man. I spent 25 years, 30 years building this thing. And
well, they were honoring the 99 team, and Michael Vick and Beamer were on the sideline. I didn't see them in the second half. They might not have hung around after halftime.
Beamer was going to get a workout in because he knew he was going to come back and save the program again.
Well, I mean,
is he going to Bill Snyder this one?
Yeah, I think so.
Look,
wouldn't shock me.
Look, Justin Fuente had a nice track record at Memphis, but he wasn't there all that long. And on top of that, when they hired him, they did this weird, like, you get the job, but you're keeping Bud Foster whether you want him or not. So, like, basically the guy that was the other candidate for the job, they're smashed together into this weird marriage. And now Bud Foster's retiring. What is Bud Foster's incentive to care about the defense, to make it look good? The defense has been atrocious this year. The offense up until the Duke game had been at least somewhat functional. But like, this thing's a disaster, and I wouldn't be surprised if it cost Fuente his job. I talked about that in the preview show. There's a lot of stink in Gobbler Nation.
Gobbler Nation.
Yeah, it's getting bad up there, and
in
Hokieville. But hey, Cutcliffe, unbelievable track record as a coach outside of a couple seasons down there at Mississippi, and he knows quarterbacks obviously pretty well. And Quentin Harris, man, who would have guessed that Duke would have just reloaded instead of rebuilding the quarterback position with a fifth-year senior who used to be a walk-on?
I'm telling you, dude, Ole Miss is dumb for letting him go. Just think how.
Well, no, you could just remove the "for letting him go" off of that sentence, and you'd still be correct.
Yeah, they're just dumb. But like, come on, man. Like he had the Manning seal of approval. I don't know what other Ole Miss family that you need approval from than the Mannings. And you fire the guy because he didn't. I mean, God Almighty.
Well, what did Robert E. Lee's descendants say?
They probably would have supported Cut too.
He got results.
Yeah,
this is totally tangential, but so Ole Miss played Cal, and the same week that Arkansas played San Jose State. This was 2 weeks ago. How about some unfortunate scheduling that sometimes happens to these lovable Mountain West teams? San Jose State didn't spend the weekend in Arkansas. They took a 4 a.m. flight back to San Jose. So basically their Sunday was trash, and I'm assuming their Monday wasn't particularly productive either. And they then turned around and played a Friday game at altitude in Air Force. Predictably, they lost, but that is a turnaround right there.
That's brutal.
So yeah, they're playing a Thursday flight, maybe. So, there you go.
Oh, that's terrible.
There you go. What else should we recap from the weekend?
Notre Dame, Virginia. Notre Dame's defense showed up, eight sacks.
Yeah.
That was fun. Pitt
Virginia scrapped hard though. They had a halftime
tried
lead.
to tell people that Notre Dame is trying to be for real this year, and I hate to say that. I know it's an unpopular opinion, but Notre Dame is playing some damn good football right now. And Virginia is also starting to become a contender in the ACC. Let's go back in the Wayback Machine when they hired Bronco Mendenhall. What is it that I said? I said if you be patient, he's going to build you into a contender. What has Virginia done? They
just
were patient.
That.
And what are they now? Contenders. So, yes.
Well, they're definitely more of a contender than Georgia Tech is. They lost to Temple 24-2.
I love that.
In one of my favorite scores of the week.
They only got 12'd up.
12'd up. Over in the Big 12.
That's a lot of 2-run doubles.
Over in the Big 12, Oklahoma State beat Kansas State at home 26-13. Chuba Hubbard, another game, another 296 yards on 25 carries. And elsewhere, Baylor won just an absolute insane finish to beat Iowa State by 23-21.
This game has some aspects that kind of pissed me off, to say the least.
Do tell.
So it's being played in a god-awful heat wave, triple digits in Waco. They didn't change the kickoff from high noon. And then
was Gary Cooper calling the game?
Yeah, and then Baylor and Iowa State both put up like some tents for shade. And Baylor complained about it, and Big 12 officials told them to take down their tents. Just the Iowa State side, not Baylor. So Iowa State is in the sun on the bench in 100-degree air temperature weather during the game. They said that the temperature on the field on Iowa State's bench was 145 degrees. It's really, really nice that people care about player safety. That is just straight up bullshit.
Yeah, that makes – I don't think that makes us like Baylor any more than we already don't.
I was going to say that is –
that goes beyond gamesmanship, and it – like there's some things you can do gamesmanship wise. That's definitely not one of them.
Yeah. You already had them on the sun side anyway. Like, just whatever.
In the words of Captain Renault, I am shocked to see Baylor doing something that is aligned with malfeasance here.
Yeah. Wow.
In the Pac-12, their one and only hope for an unbeaten team is now over. Cal went out and lost to Arizona State at home on Friday night.
I caught the tail end of that when I got home.
Yeah, Washington beat USC pretty handily. That defense looked really good. Utah beat Washington State, and now
best press conference ever. Mike Leach called his team fat, dumb, happy, and entitled.
Well,
and soft.
Other than that, how are things
all right,
going?
Carry on.
Yeah. Arizona beat UCLA in a nail-biter, 20-17. And Stanford needed to hold on against a late-charging Oregon State to win 31-28.
There you go.
We
How about
learned.
the Bees?
Well, Some random fun stuff that I just wanted to fly through real quick that you didn't mention, Coach or Matt. Iowa, most yards in the Kirk Ferentz era, 644. That was pretty cool, topping 614 from a couple of years ago. Minnesota, 4-0, beat Purdue in classic Minnesota fashion. They jumped out to a 38-17 lead and then didn't score in the fourth quarter, gave up 14 points and held on. That was pretty funny. And guess who had this happen to them? Not a Big Ten team. That's the only hint I'll give you. So this particular team was down 31-27. 4 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. So they're driving cross midfield. They are facing a 4th and 2 right at the 50. 4-yard pass. Pick it up on the 4th down. Awesome. The drive continues. They get into a 3rd and 17. False start. Backed up now a 3rd and 22 with 34 seconds left. A 17-yard run. Take the timeout. So a 4th and 5. They've already converted 1 4th down. They just need 5 yards for a first. They're 19 yards away from a touchdown and a win. Incomplete pass. Who would have created all that hope and all that drama of a awesome 17-yard scramble, followed by the agony of screwing it up?
Pig suey.
It was Woo Pig Suey.
I was watching that. I saw that exact sequence. Woo pig suey.
When he made the scramble, I thought they were going to win.
I know. I was like, oh no. I was texting you guys about that. I remember that. I was like, oh, A&M's on the ropes here. Hold the phone. And then that. Then that. And then they beat-em-ed all over themselves.
Well, that happens.
Yeah. You like my adjective?
I did. Another game I
Georgia remained undefeated this weekend. That was good.
Yeah, actually, another game I forgot that I wanted to talk about. A classic pulling defeat from the jaws of victory. The utter meltdown BYU had against Toledo was fairly comical. So a little context on this one. First of all, burner in the first half, 7-3 halftime lead for BYU. But they get things going. They get up 14-6. Well, then give that up. But then they regain the lead, 21-14. Okay. Things are going well. Later, it's tied at 21. They have a turnover on downs. Okay, so the game's still tied. Fine. But then they force a fumble. Ooh. They succeeded. They get the ball back. Next play, interception. The interception was returned 40 yards to the 2-yard line. And one play later, Toledo scored and wins the game. Like, what? Turnover on downs, then a fumble, then an interception, then you lose. Oops.
Yikes.
That's what we like to call a turnover situation.
Is that bad? It ain't good.
Yeah. Well, it's a good thing they beat Tennessee earlier in the season.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we recapped last weekend well enough. Let's preview some games.
All right. Well, the first one we should get to, Josh, your adopted team this year, the Eastern Michigan Screaming Eagles.
The Screaming Mean Eagles, yeah.
They are playing another directional Michigan school, this time in Kalamazoo.
Yeah, a little road trip. Not Kalamazoo, that is Western Michigan.
They're
going to Mount Pleasant for Central Michigan. Tonight. It happens. There's 3 schools all with a direction in them.
Yeah, but Ypsilanti and Kalamazoo should be the easy ones.
Yeah. So, Central in the Shark Humper's debut season, is 2-3. They beat FCS Albany, and then proceeded to get absolutely obliterated 61-0 by Wisconsin. Then they beat Akron, who just got smoked by UMass. Akron is one of the probably 3 or 4 worst teams in the entire country. And then Central since then lost a road trip at Miami by 5. And then that's Miami, Florida, not Miami of Ohio. Then they went to Western Michigan, lost by 16. So theoretically, the Broncos should be able to beat Miami. But yeah, it's tough to see really what Central Michigan does particularly well. Whereas Eastern has had some pretty nice gritty performances. Their defense has a little bit of an attitude at times, although their points per game aren't great. But what is nice is Mike Glass III. I've talked about him before. Through 4 games, he's got 1,120 yards and 12 touchdowns. Not bad to have a guy averaging 3 touchdowns a game.
Yeah, not bad at all. Coach, Georgia State is at home this weekend, and they are welcoming in Arkansas State, second trip to the state of Georgia in the last 3 or 4 weeks, I think.
Yeah, I think this one's going to fare better for the Red Wolves.
Yeah, unfortunately, Coach,
your
Georgia State squad not quite as good as your actual Dogs.
Yeah, when I adopted them, I knew I was in for a challenge here. Arkansas State, they had a 50-43 win over Troy. Lane Hatcher passed for 440 and 4 touchdowns. He had a 92-yard bomb actually to Omar Bayless in the first quarter. So they're explosive offensively. In Georgia State again, they should have beat up on a very lowly down Texas State team, but they were on the short end of a 37-34 loss. So just Georgia State just still struggling. They're 2-2. They have some they're stumbling in the game, limping in, I should say. They are giving up the 4th most rushing touchdowns. That's 13 on the season. So that's no bueno. They're the 7th worst in yards allowed with 500 on average. So you do the math here. It's not going to look pretty. So I hate to say that. They're my adopted team. I hope they do well, but it's going to be a minute before they become the best team in Atlanta.
Yeah, well, I mean, Georgia Tech scored 2 points last week, so
they're not as far away as I probably think, but still,
yeah.
They beat Arkansas State, then we'll talk.
Well,
they did beat Tennessee.
Finally, East Carolina, my adopted team is actually playing as we are recording here on Thursday night. Just got into the 4th quarter. They are losing to Temple 24-10. Last week, they needed every last second that they could get in order to beat Old Dominion 24-21. It was not the prettiest of games. I am a little bit concerned about the ECU offense, actually.
They're fighting hard, though. Temple's a good team.
Yeah, I don't know. I really just don't feel like they have I really don't feel like they have the personnel, or they're not meshing right.
Yeah.
So far.
Well, actually, you know what? Sorry. Just real quick, instant coaching analysis.
Oh.
Coach, Eastern, I've got this game on my TV as we record. Eastern is down 14 points, 24-10. 4th quarter just started, 14 minutes, 16 seconds left. Eastern hasn't really done anything all game. They have a 4th and about 3/4 of a yard from their
3/4 of a yard. Yeah,
from their own 45-yard line.
Go for it.
Well, they punted.
Yeah, go for it. What I mean, shit, you're down 2 scores. You don't know how many possessions you're going to get legitimately, so go for it.
I'm with you there. Yeah,
Just
I'm with you there.
3/4 of a yard. Go for it. In that situation, like if it's third quarter, sure, punt it. If your offense is sniffing some semblance of moving the ball and you're just kind of coming up short, sure, punt it because you might be on something. But you don't know how, like I said, you can't guarantee. You might get 2 possessions, so you're just really limiting yourself. Go for it while you still got the ball.
Might as well.
No.
Well, let's head from our adopted teams to one of our dyed-in-the-wool teams. Josh, it is the battle for the Cook family this weekend. Josh versus Jared.
Not really.
Iowa versus Michigan.
Well, I mean, really, since graduating, Jared and I have both
come back home.
So we will both be in black and gold, I'm sure.
So either way, Iowa playing Michigan this weekend. I am surprised Michigan is a favorite at home this weekend, Josh. Frankly, I know that they're Michigan, but to me, Iowa is better on the defensive line. Then their defensive line is far superior to Michigan's offensive line, and Iowa's offensive line is superior to Michigan's defensive line. And in Big Ten football, if you win both sides of the trenches, you're going to win the game. I'm sorry. It's just the way it is. So am I wrong?
I will agree that Michigan's defensive line has not played up to expectations at all. And we mentioned it after the Wisconsin game, or I did at least, that Don Brown's defense is so aggressive that when you start to play competent teams, it's kind of backfiring. They get out of position a whole lot, and teams kind of take advantage of that. It's like a boxer that has a huge haymaker, and they just keep throwing it. Well, yeah, against some tomato cans like Rutgers, it's going to be a knockout, but against, well, like Wisconsin earlier this season, against Florida in the bowl game, against Ohio State, those teams just take advantage of it. So there's a hope that Iowa can take advantage of it. Their running game is interesting in that Mekhi Sargent, their leading rusher, has 300 yards and only 2 touchdowns. But as a team, Sargent, Torrin Young, and Tyler Goodson from Georgia, they're all over 200 yards on the season. As a team, they have almost 900 yards thus far. They're averaging 5 yards a carry. So they kind of have a 3-headed monster. Stanley has a much better completion percentage so far this season. He's got 8 touchdowns to 0 picks. He's looking really dialed in, having a nice senior year. But, Matt, you mentioned that Iowa has a better defensive line. They got the names on that line with A.J. Epinesa, but so far through 4 games, results haven't been there. Just 3 total sacks for the team this year. 5 total sacks so far. That's not what Iowa fans expected. 3 interceptions so far. A very, very banged up secondary injury-wise. Now, Michigan hasn't been the best passing of teams so far, but I know Iowa fans are concerned that with the banged up secondary and for whatever reason, lack of consistent pass rush, Shea Patterson's going to have his coming out party. That's the worry for Iowa fans.
Well, Coach, is Josh right? And should Iowa fans worry about, about that defense not being able to get to Shea Patterson? Do you think this is the game that they finally get the ball in the hands of those talented wide receivers that they have there in Ann Arbor?
No, because listen to this stat. Michigan is 10th in the Big Ten in rushing. They're only rushing for 131 yards per game. Zach Charbonnet, where is he? He's had 7 carries in the last 2 weeks. What the heck is going on there? Michigan is starting to become one-dimensional, and they're starting to become crazy like their head coach. So I don't see it because I can load up on I can load up the box and say, beat me. Boom, I'm a blitz. I'm bringing the house. Zero coverage. All right. Cover one, cover zero, blitz the hell out of Shea Patterson. Say, you want to do it? You better beat me through the air because you're going to be one dimensional. We're coming to get you. So, I think Michigan's trending downward, and so I don't think it'll be a big issue. Also, Iowa's extremely disciplined. I just read this stat. They're second in the country in fewest penalties, and so I really like that stat. It's just I don't know why that stands out to me, but that usually goes with great discipline, and with great discipline, you're usually in the right spot at the right time. Not only committing fewer penalties, but just being where you're supposed to be and doing your job. And so I really like those aspects for the Hawkeyes, and that's kind of where the edge is. Michigan's in disarray right now, even though they just beat up 52-0 on Rutgers. But I mean, come on, it's Rutgers, you know. Um, that doesn't count. It's like Florida beating Towson. Okay, cool. Your guys got some extra work. Great. All right, let's see what you do against a real opponent now. All right. So, I guess you kind of, I guess it's a great mystery where I'm leaning towards this game.
Yeah, I like the Hawkeyes here a lot. But speaking of Michigan, their two greatest foes, little brother and that school from the neighboring state down south, are going to be facing off in Columbus this weekend, Josh. Michigan State comes into Columbus after looking, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe questionable against Indiana. They got the win, but it wasn't really very pretty in the process.
Indiana's frisky, though. I mean, they looked sharp against Northwestern and beat them by 21. I mean, Michigan State's an okay
Can
team.
Michigan State just wear those god-awful uniforms and just go ahead and get fully embarrassed?
Still, the spread is basically 3 touchdowns on this one, Josh. Is there any way that Michigan State can really keep it even close? What do they need to do in order to do that? I mean, Justin Fields looks like, the best quarterback in America.
Well, they need to dial up some amazing defense. They're going to need to have like some vintage D'Antonio defense, which they've had flashes of this year. Although the 31 points against Indiana doesn't necessarily help my argument. And they're going to need their quarterback, Brian Lewerke, to just play out of his mind, which he has. He had a game against Penn State a year or two ago where he had like 420 passing yards, and it was like his greatest day, and it let Michigan State have a big upset. But Coach talked about the Wolverines kind of up and down running game. Well, last week against Indiana, Lewerke was their leading rusher.
That's not a good sign because he's not exactly what you call a mobile quarterback.
No, so that's a little bit of a concern. And the Michigan State running back, Elijah Collins, he has decent stats on the year, but he's just a freshman and didn't look too hot against Indiana, their first Big Ten game. So it's really going to be all on the shoulders of Lewerke. If he can find magic in a bottle, have his best game as a quarterback, and that defense plays, like I said, vintage Spartan defense, they got a puncher's chance. But I don't like it. I don't like that it's in the horseshoe. I think there's a real possibility Michigan State's down by 38, just like Nebraska was at halftime.
Yeah, Coach, Justin Fields just through what have they played? 4 games this season? 5 games this season?
Yeah.
Through 5 games this season has 1,092 yards, which that's not a ton through 5 games. It's 220 yards a game, give or take. But he has 16 touchdowns and no picks.
It's ridiculous. I mean,
and that doesn't even bring up or take into consideration the 222 yards and 7 touchdowns that he has on the ground. He is a one-man wrecking crew right now, and this is why you weren't on the show on last week when I proclaimed this, but I think that Ryan Day right now after Lincoln Riley, I think Ryan Day might be the best offensive mind in the country right now.
He really is, and Ryan Day, I apologize. I did not give you enough credit. I really
He's
do.
a beast, man. Like
he is,
and he can do it with multiple kinds of players.
And it is showing. His true talent is showing through, and quite frankly, that's what he needed. This is exactly what he needed. He needed that chance to get out from Urban Meyer, and show exactly what he could do, and he's doing that right now with Justin Fields. And as much as it pains me to say it, because it's Ohio State, and that's that's an annoying team to root for various reasons. And Justin Fields kind of went out the way he went out at Georgia and left a kind of a sour taste in a lot of Georgia fans' minds. And but quite frankly, just strip all of that, and it is just an absolute show watching Justin Fields and watching what he's doing at Ohio State. This is the perfect offense for him. And this is and besides Lincoln Riley, Ryan Day might be the perfect coach for Justin Fields. He is, for whatever reason, tapped in to exactly what makes Justin Fields go. And it's just, I mean, it's awesome. It is actually fun to watch. I legitimately enjoyed. I stayed on this blowout for a little while because Auburn was just dismantling Mississippi State, and that one was boring. But some blowout, not all blowouts are created equal. This one I kind of stayed on for a little while because I was just intrigued. And a guy that played freshman ball for me at Blackman the one year that I was there, Master Teague.
Yeah, he's playing running back for Ohio State.
Yeah,
looking pretty good.
Yeah, he scored, I think, 2 or 3 touchdowns. One of them was a long one. He's
well, I'm going to attribute that to you, Coach. You were his running back coach, weren't you?
Actually, no. I was coaching the receivers then.
Well, then I'm sorry.
I mean, but just for credit's sake, yeah, I was definitely the running backs coach. Now, you know how you coach Master Teague?
You say go out there and do your thing.
Say, okay, here's the play. I'm gonna be standing back here if you need me. Just wake me up before you go, so I don't get in your way. That's how you coach Master Teague.
You don't want to be left hanging like a yo-yo.
Yeah. Nice. Nice Wham reference. Yeah, so that's how you coach Master Teague as a freshman. Master Teague looked about like he does at Ohio State as a freshman, if you can imagine that. But this is actually a fun team to watch, and I know that's an unpopular opinion amongst Big Ten folks, but this is actually a fun team to watch, and it's going to be interesting to see come playoff time how it all shakes out between them, Oklahoma, Georgia, Clemson, Alabama. I think this is I know this sounds like a broken record, but this might actually, because Ohio State's playing so well and Oklahoma's playing so well, this might be the year that the loser of the SEC championship doesn't get in. Like the year that someone always gets in that doesn't win their conference.
Well, okay,
this might be the year that doesn't happen.
LSU and Alabama are going to eliminate one's going to eliminate the other, and the other one's going to go to the SEC title game, unless Auburn somehow gets in the mix there.
Which could happen.
Which could happen. I mean, they could have one of the three-way things. Alabama wins the Iron Bowl, loses to LSU. LSU loses to Auburn, and
creates this mess.
Creates a mess.
I mean, come on. If Ohio State's playing the way they're playing, Oklahoma's playing the way they're playing, can either of them be left out?
But at this point in the season, insofar as I can tell, there are 6 teams that are a step above everyone else: Clemson, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Oklahoma, LSU.
Yeah.
And after that, then you can get into talking about teams like Auburn. You can get into, a couple of the other teams around the country. But really it's those 6 teams than everyone else.
Yeah.
So, but two of those everyone else who want to be in for consideration are there in the SEC. Auburn and Florida, they're going to be facing off in Gainesville this weekend, Coach. Kyle Trask and Bo Nix, two guys who do not have a ton of seasoning between the two of them, are both quarterbacks of top 10 SEC teams who are undefeated headed into October. So I think this is a bit of a weird scenario in a weird setup.
It is, but I think that Auburn is just better. I think Bo Nix is way more polished. I think Auburn has a true identity. I think they have shown that they can be multifaceted and multidimensional with the run game and mixing in the passes and mixing in Joey Gatewood as a changeup and not having that become a distraction. I think that, they're just. I think they're better coached. Honestly, is what it boils down to. I think, and Gus Malzahn was somebody that, again, I was hammering on last year, and for whatever reason, it just wasn't a good mix, and I just didn't think he was a good fit for Auburn anymore because I just think that maybe he just had a bad mix of that bad chemistry or just something was off about last year's team. And that happens every once in a while. And I kind of thought it was time for him to move on, but I'm pretty sure that Auburn fans are kind of glad that he didn't. But Jatarvius Whitlow in the run game, is fantastic.
Right. I don't know, Coach. This Auburn team, this is a tough game in terms of scheduling.
It is a tough game as far as scheduling.
Because after this, they have a bye week. And then after the bye week, they have their biggest rival.
LSU.
They have not even LSU. After Florida, they have the bye week. And then they're playing not the Iron Bowl, the Bronze Bowl up in Fayetteville. No one wants a piece of Arkansas right now. I think Auburn might get caught looking 2 weeks ahead.
They might be. Oh, good point. Good point. Pig suey. Yes. All right. I love that. Okay. All right. Scratch everything I said. Gators big. No. Nix is averaging, Josh, 16 yards per pass in his last game. I mean, 335 yard total, 2 touchdowns.
I'll take it.
They finally, I've always described Malzahn's offense as just kind of a hodgepodge of plays and not really connected, and they don't really. I feel like it's just kind of like he's selecting from a Waffle House menu.
Yes. The Brian Ferentz offense.
Yeah.
Know it well.
Not quite the Cheesecake Factory menu that some teams employ, like Ben McAdoo did for the Giants. It's a picture you got to see. It's pretty funny on the internet. For those of you listening home, Google that. But I felt like Gus Malzahn was just throwing stuff at the wall and see what stuck. But I finally feel like he's got some things going on. I finally feel like he's kind of in a rhythm because I think out of all the quarterbacks that he's had since he's been head coach, I think Bo Nix is turning out to be the best fit at that position. Nick Marshall was a great athlete, not a great thrower, good enough, but not quite what Malzahn wanted. Got to a national championship. Because
what about Cam Newton?
He wasn't the head coach then.
He wasn't the head coach. So obviously Cam Newton's probably the best quarterback Malzahn.
How does Gene Chizik have a freaking national title? It's not fair. I'm sorry to completely interrupt this with Gene Chizik. Gene Chizik has a national championship, and we can't take that away from him. How is that even remotely possible? I'm sorry. Go on with your day.
He recruited one Cameron Newton. So I think honestly,
no, his bag man recruited Cameron Newton.
Whatever, however you want to see it. Cam Newton ended up at Auburn's campus, and they couldn't nail him down. So, we could do a whole series of shows on that. But then the Jarrett Stidham experiment, complete bust. Jarrett Stidham was probably one of the worst fits for Malzahn. The stupid quarterback situation they had before that just never worked. In between Marshall and Stidham, that was terrible. And then finally, now they got Bo Nix, and just look at him go. I mean, I feel like Bo Nix is a fit. So, Florida is just they're okay in the rushing attack. I don't think Kyle Trask will ever face a defensive line this good. The closest he'll come is Georgia in the cocktail party, but Auburn, I think, has got one of the, if not the most talented defensive line in the country. One of them for sure.
I want to see Florida though prove it, because they're averaging 8 points allowed per game. That looks pretty good. They shut out Tennessee Martin. Okay. They shut out Towson. Okay.
I was talking about Auburn.
How do they get Martin and Towson on their schedule?
I don't know. They held Tennessee to 3 points. Okay.
It's like
Miami's not very good. 20 points. Kentucky 21 points.
Miami,
does Florida have the defense to slow Auburn?
I feel like with Florida, they don't have the depth right now to run through an SEC schedule. I feel like they were almost taken a task by Kentucky, and they haven't even got to the meat of the SEC schedule yet. This will be a good litmus test to see exactly where Florida is, both offensively and defensively. It'll be a good test to see, okay, is all the hype about Kyle Trask legitimate? Okay. Is Michael Pirine, is he as good as we thought he was going to be? Okay. He hasn't quite been. Is Jabari Zuninga and CJ Henderson, Freddie, are they good on defense? You know, are they true to what their stats have been showing, or is it just because they've played Towson and UT Martin and a very weak Miami and a extremely weak Tennessee, who is in complete shambles right now? They're calling their head coach, who was in 4 o'clock in the morning, and asking him to try to bail him out of getting arrested, stuff like that. I don't know if you saw that story. Jeremy Pruitt is on they released tape of a body cam of one of the Knoxville cops, and Jeremy Pruitt's talking to him and questioning why. And he says, I've been to 4 other places and I haven't seen no crap like this. So
well, it's okay that Jeremy Pruitt got the vote of confidence this week.
He did. So
Yeah.
that's dangerous. So Fulmer is about to drive that knife right between the shoulder blades. So we'll see. Honestly, we'll see what Florida's defense. If they come out and they show out this week, then I'll start to believe some of the hype. If Auburn's D comes out and shows out, then I'll really start to believe the hype on them. If Bo Nix comes out and lights up the Gators, we might have a SEC West race, folks. The Iron Bowl might be interesting this year. The LSU game will get really interesting if Auburn comes up and lights up the Gators. So, and definitely, it's going to be fireworks in the Bronze Bowl. Oh, show. So, I'm really intrigued by this game, and I've probably made it no secret where I'm leaning.
You did the same tease for Iowa.
I know. It's the same situation, the same scenario. Just go look at my Twitter. You'll see. So yeah, I like Auburn to win this one and possibly win it big.
All right. Let's head, Josh, quickly over to the Cal versus Oregon game. Like I mentioned before, Cal lost not only their first game of the season, but also their starting quarterback. And that is going to be a pretty big problem. Chase Garbers had been playing really well so far this season for the Bears. He was replaced in the second half last week by Devin Monster, who proceeded to go 5 for 14 for, hold up, 23 yards. That is 1.6 yards per attempt. 5 for 14 with an interception, obviously no touchdowns, 23 yards. Cal D is amazing. Evan Weaver is a revelation at linebacker. But, do you think there's a chance that, the week of practice being the starting quarterback will help Monster, the UCLA transfer, enough that they will be able to put up a fight against Oregon? Or is it just, going to be too much of an uphill battle for the Golden Bears?
I think there's a slight chance. Yes, he was atrocious coming off the bench against Arizona State. ASU does have a good defense, though. We should give them credit for that. If you look at Devin Monster's career prior to that game, though, he played quite a bit in 2017. He ended up 30 of 45, 66.7 completion percentage, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He did all right. And then when you look at those games, all right, we'll throw out the Utah, Washington, and Hawaii games. That was kind of basically just mop-up duty in some blowouts. But he did play the Cal and Kansas State games quite a bit. Got a lot of action in there. Against Cal, back in 2017, like you said, Matt, he was a transfer. That's why I'm not losing it. I understand he could have played Cal in 2017. But he went 14 of 18 that game, 191 yards. Against Kansas State back in that Cactus Bowl, 21 of 34 for 295 yards. He's shown some flashes a few years ago. Get the week of practice. You're knowing you're starting. You're doing all your reps with Team 1. And he's not going against a defense as good as Arizona State's. So there's a chance that he comes out and plays all right. I think the bigger issue just is it's Autzen Stadium. Bears playing pretty good football. Oregon overall, I think, is playing pretty good football. I think this would have been a tough task for the Bears, even with QB1. But I think Monster will play at least better than he did a week ago.
Coach, you are obviously, for a long time, as all of us have been, a big fan of Justin Wilcox. What does he do to slow down Justin Herbert and the rest of that Oregon offense?
Well, I just think that he mixes coverages. He brings pressures and different types of disguises, different types of disguises, not only with the coverages, but the pressures as well. I think Wilcox is very not enough defensive coordinators, not enough defensive minds get credit for being creative with stunts and pressures. But I think Wilcox is somebody that has proven that he can do that. Even against veteran quarterbacks, he was able to shake up the all Mr. Everything Jacob Eason at Washington. He was able to go into Ole Miss.
That's because it was 1:15 in the morning and Eason's used to partying at that time, not actually playing football.
Yeah, that is true. But no, but what Wilcox can do is he can get pretty. I don't want to say exotic because that's a lame word, but he gets creative with his pressures, and I think that's kind of what he does. Just for whatever you can do to confuse Herbert. Whatever you can do to confuse those 5 guys up front, because that's what matters even more. Because if you can't protect Herbert, it's going to be hard for Herbert to throw on the run or Bear. Herbert's going to turn into Bear if they don't protect well enough. And if you bring some confusing stuff for those 5 guys, you're going to have to dedicate 6, 7 guys into protection. That limits your route coverage, and you could really just start to kind of overload things and snowball things. Create disruptive plays, havoc plays, which are turnovers, things like that. Some things you can do in a nutshell.
Absolutely. All right. Well, gents, let's quickly hit our spread formations to finish out the show. Josh, since you led the spread formations last week, they are not going to count in the official standings because coach did not get to pick. Also, because you went 3-7 and I went 2-8.
What?
In the 10 games we chose.
No, we didn't.
Yeah, we did.
I went 10-0.
Well, coach didn't hear it, so you might as well have. Anyway, we start this week with honestly the game I am most excited about in the entire slate of games this entire weekend. Josh, you mentioned Jeff Monken earlier in the show. I mentioned Willie Fritz. Well, they're facing off this weekend. Yeah. West Point, New York, over under 43.5 points. Tulane, 2.5-point favorites on the road. These two teams are mirror images of each other, Josh. What do you like here?
Well, Tulane last time out had that incredible comeback win against Houston. They're a really fun team. They're a really improving program. But I don't think they're 100% there yet. Army has very clearly arrived, 10 wins a year ago. Came super close to beating Michigan this year. They are clicking. They look really good. Should have
beat Oklahoma last year.
Yeah, they have a sneaky good home field advantage because like there's just so much pomp and circumstance with playing at West Point. And on top of that, the American Conference has some weird start times, and Tulane has a fair number of night games, especially early in the year because of the humidity and stuff. And they no longer play in the Dome for people that I don't know why they wouldn't know that if they're listening to this detailed podcast, but who knows? Well, not the case. Noon start, early game in West Point. I'm going to take Army because I think they're going to win.
Coach?
Wow, what a good explanation. I'm going to go with the simple one. I'm not going to cop out and take the over-under. I'm going to take Tulane at -2.5. I just really like the way they're playing ball right now. Willie Fritz, I think, is a little bit more dynamic. And I think Army's kind of struggling a little bit. But this is the battle of the former Georgia Southern Eagles coaches. So give me Jeff Monken's successor at Georgia Southern to win for Tulane.
Two of Tulane's assistants played for Monken at Georgia Southern.
Oh,
this is this is just a game of just teams that know each other so well. I love Tulane, but I'm actually with Josh on this one. I think Army wins this one outright, so I will also get those 2.5 points as well on my side. Let's head next back to the Big 12, where Baylor heads up to the Little Apple to take on Kansas State, who are 1.5-point favorites at home after losing to Oklahoma State last week by 13. Over under here, 49, Josh.
I love Kansas State here for several reasons. First of all, they beat Mississippi State. They start getting some nice clippings. They get ranked, and they go down to Stillwater and lay an absolute dud. 8 first downs, 1 of 13 on third, 244 total passing yards, 118 passing yards, a 5.1 yard per pass average. Terrible. More penalties, more penalty yards, and a turnover. They were atrocious. I think that is good. I think they had a very productive bye week, to say the least. And as a result, I like them from that standpoint. From Baylor's standpoint, They had a joke of a non-conference schedule: Stephen F. Austin, Texas San Antonio, and Rice. And then basically did Iowa State dirty. And even with that, gave up 21 fourth quarter points to almost lose the game, and really could have and maybe even should have lost the game. Love Kansas State in this situation.
Coach, how about you?
Ooh. So what I want to happen is I want Kansas State to just ground and pound them all the way back to Waco. What I think will happen is just that. Yeah, I like Kansas State to just bludgeon Baylor to death. I'm gonna take Kansas State in the -1.5.
Even though it's a Big 12 game, I'm gonna go ahead here and take the under. I'm gonna go ahead and take under 49. Don't really have a huge explanation on this one, other than the fact that I think that both of these teams, with Matt Rule at Baylor, they haven't been airing it out quite as much as they used to.
Just extended him.
I mean, given the circumstances, he's done a good job.
Yeah.
Like, I understand why they extended him. I just think that this one is going to be a low-scoring affair. So give me the under. Let's head then over to the Pac-12, Josh. The Buffs of Colorado, 4.5-point favorites at home against Arizona. I guess they'll be bearing down on the Buffaloes. Over under here, 61.5. Well, which way are you leaning?
Yeah, I'm leaning Colorado's way. First of all, game in Buffalo territory, playing at altitude. Arizona, kind of diminishing returns. Lost to Hawaii, and then had the bounce back, sort of 65-41 over Northern Arizona, and then beat a pretty pedestrian Texas Tech team 28-14, and then beat a really pedestrian UCLA team by just a field goal.
That's an affront to people who walk places.
Yeah. Colorado coming off their victory down there at Arizona State, who has a pretty good defense, like we've talked about. And for two teams that I don't know a whole lot about, I do know that Colorado has Steven Montez. I think he's by far the best player in this game, so I'm going to go with Colorado.
Coach?
Josh, nice analysis. I'm gonna go with the Buffs too. Everything you just said, I like a -4.5.
I too like Colorado. I too am not impressed with Arizona, and I happen to think that Colorado is just a more talented and at this point better coached team. I am worried about Kevin Sumlin. And as for the over-under here, honestly, I have no idea. I could see Colorado winning this one like 24-17. I could also see it being a game where both teams score in the mid to upper 40s. Let's stick in the Pac-12, though. This time we've got the road team, a 16.5-point favorite. It's the Washington Huskies head to the farm. Over-under here, Josh, is 51.5. Who do you like?
Well, road favorites by 16.5 is alarming, and Stanford has played some pretty poor football, to say the least, and I think it's safe to say that this is just going to be one of those years where a good team and a good coach just have a bad season. Having said that, 16.5 at home at a 9:30 p.m. Pac-12 after dark type game, I'm going to trust some Stanford magic at the farm. I don't think they win, but I think they can cover.
Coach?
Yeah, I've been going back and forth on this one. I've had a hard time with it because I just keep thinking that Stanford's going to bust out of this and like not suck so bad. I have a hard time believing
no
that.
KJ Costello again this week.
I know, and
David Mills looked really good against Oregon State, though.
That's making me lean towards Washington.
They only beat them by 3, and it's Oregon State. Oregon State.
Yes, but
they are at home.
It was up in Corvallis.
You know what?
When was the last time it was tough? Honestly, we love Corvallis. We love Oregon State. When was the last time it was honestly tough to play in Corvallis?
It never stopped being tough. It's like a big
give me
boy.
a break.
USC in 2008.
Was it even 2008?
Well, look. I mean, yes, it was a close game by the final score, but David Mills individually played really well. The reason it was so close was Oregon State put together 21 fourth quarter points. It was, I mean, I don't want to say
Davis Mills is, don't get me wrong, like a very highly touted quarterback prospect, at least coming out of high school. But I don't know, I'm not terribly happy with the product I'm seeing if I am a Cardinal fan now.
No, but I mean, look, giving Stanford a tad bit of benefit of the doubt without having watched a second of this game because it was Oregon State and Stanford. Stanford's a 21-0 late in the third quarter. They're probably playing in a stadium that is 3/4 empty. They probably just took their foot off the gas, and Oregon State strung together some nice drives, and then Stanford, they had to win it late with the Jet Toner field goal. But I don't know. I wouldn't use the Oregon State game as your total result.
No, I'm not trying to. I'm just saying that, I don't know. I guess we haven't even gotten to your pick yet. So go ahead and you're taking Stanford. Coach, who are you taking?
I'll go ahead and take Washington. I think they win by 20.
Okay. I'm gonna take Stanford, Josh. I'm actually with you on this, so I don't even know why we're arguing. I'm taking Stanford anyway.
There we go.
I guess I wanted to be devil's advocate a little bit too much. Lastly, we needed to put them back in their honorable in the honorable last slot in spread formations.
Is Rutgers off this week?
No. Rutgers this week actually is who is Rutgers playing this week? I can't remember off the top of my head. They are playing
Rutgers and Maryland.
Couldn't find a great line on that game. It looks to be at about 12.5 or 13 for Maryland. But whenever you see someone as a 32-point favorite on the road,
I mean, it's really easy though. It's really easy though to discuss Maryland. They'll either score 70 points or 0 points.
So I guess you're going to take the over in the Maryland Rutgers game, is what I'm hearing.
Sure.
Because I don't think Rutgers can give up 0 points to anyone. Their defense is a sieve.
True. Yeah.
So, anyhow, Oklahoma 32-point favorites at the track in Kansas. Josh, over under 67.5, probably just for Oklahoma. Les Miles, can he pull some magic off against Boomer Sooner?
Unfortunately, no.
Can he keep it to closer than 32?
Unfortunately, no.
Alas.
So Kansas beat BC. That was nice. They got to 2-1 on the year. Lost kind of a mini heartbreaker to West Virginia, and then they got obliterated by TCU. Their starting running back, Khalil Herbert, he's gone. Dismissed from the team. So
you are the weakest link. Goodbye.
Kansas is returning to form. in pretty spectacular fashion. I would say they're waiting for basketball season, but I think they're just waiting for basketball penalties to be announced. Give me Oklahoma and give me the over because of the damage Oklahoma's about to do.
Coach?
So here's what happens. Kansas reinstalled the track. Jalen Hurts, during warm-ups, he tries to run across the track, slips, breaks a couple of spikes on his cleats, almost turns his ankle, right? Okay, so he goes back in the locker room. He's pissed. He comes out and puts up 500 yards and 6 touchdowns on the Jayhawks. Boomer Sooner.
Boomer Sooner, Coach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, they would have covered that against Texas Tech last week. I mean, that was a home game still.
Jalen Hurts covered that by himself.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and take the over here. I mean, gosh, Oklahoma should be up by 32 at halftime. It's still Kansas. Oh, I want to take Oklahoma and the over. Yeah, I'm gonna do
take
it.
them.
Okay,
take
why
them.
not?
Take them.
Why not?
Take
Okay,
them. Take them.
here we go.
Don't be scared.
Boomer Sooner, Lincoln Riley. I'm all in. I know I've been praising Ryan Day a lot, but don't worry, you're still number one with me when it comes to offensive play calling.
Number one in your program or number one in your heart?
My heart of hearts.
There you go.
Josh, did we miss anything?
No, ironically, we're not. Arkansas is on the bye week, so no bearing the lead.
And you already mentioned them earlier in the show.
Well, that's how you knew that they were on the bye week. So I'll just give a shout out to SMU Ponies, nationally ranked for the first time since the death penalty. Very, 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 very good chance to get it to 6-0 as they are at home against a rather mediocre 2-2 Tulsa team.
Also, wonderful uniforms for them in their last game.
Yeah, so that's a great story. Two Mountain West red hot seat coaches in desperate need for a win. The 1-4 Fighting Bobos host the 3-1 San Diego State team. Little mini upset there. Maybe that gets the Rams going the right direction.
Well,
I don't see it.
But do you think that Rocky Long is on the hot seat?
No, he's won multiple conference titles there.
Me neither.
He's fine.
The
other coach on the hot seat, desperate need of a win. Tony Sanchez's UNLV running Rebs. They host Boise State.
I think it'd be a relief for Bobo to get fired at this point. He looks bad. I mean, seriously.
They should. What is it? Mutually agree to part ways or whatever the legal term becomes.
Yeah, I mean he looks bad.
Yeah, he needs a year or two to just go somewhere and
he needs to
be there.
He needs to go back to Georgia, be an analyst for a couple of years, and then move on. Or move up or whatever.
Yeah. But those two.
Honestly, he's got 5 kids he's got to be a dad for. They're all like almost the same age. They're all like really close in age. It's crazy.
Poor guy.
Yeah, I know.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for us tonight here, gentlemen. So
the Dogs go to Knoxville.
Yeah, they do. I'm assuming that they will fare at least as well as their in-state compatriots did.
Well,
yes, hopefully better.
While talking about cupcakes, Wisconsin and LSU both stepping out of conference with Utah State for the Bayou Bengals and the Kent State Golden Flashes for the Badgers.
Kent State is just what the doctor ordered after a mediocre showing against Northwestern.
Yeah, well,
one of the many games I picked incorrectly last week.
Well, this wouldn't be the first Kent State massacre.
Somehow too soon, yet not too soon.
That was terrible. I feel bad. I could not resist.
I actually probably will. I actually probably will edit that out. But that Dude, that was brutal. I mean, can't say massacre joke. That is not one you hear every day.
Well, it's funny because they actually had one. I feel like doing the Bowling Green one. I mean, that's just cliche and making fun of the president. But Kellyanne Conway. But literally going with. Maybe before the end of the year, if next time Sam Allinger has a really big win, I'll be like, there hasn't been someone sniping people like this in Texas since the guy went up on the clock tower. I haven't seen seen anything implode in the tri-state area like Rutgers football since 9/11.
Oh.
I haven't seen a quarterback this accurate in the DMV since since the parking lot sniper.
God.
Oh wow. Is that bad?
The Tennessee Volunteers this week, they haven't had a lopsided loss like this since the Alamo.
Oh God.
God almighty. And we're off the rails, sir. We're off the rails. Yabba dabba doo.
We left the rails a long time ago.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
By the way, the East Carolina game is still going on because they had about a 15 to 20 minute delay because the lights randomly went out in the stadium.
Duh.
They had to do the Jurassic Park pump the thing 3 times and get it back turned on.
Oh
I don't know
God.
why there are still fans at this game. Like, there has to be bars in Greenville, East Carolina, right? There has to be.
One would think.
No, not necessarily though.
There's a Buffalo Wild Wings somewhere, I'm sure. Is there not? Did I get that wrong?
I mean,
Probably not.
ECU,
East Carolina players, they got the onside kick, but it didn't go 10 yards. Did a Temple player touch this?
Brutal.
Oh, come on, 80. Is that a tight end on the hands team?
You know the rules. Hands team, all tight ends off the field.
Idiot. The Temple player was standing 9 yards down the field and leaned over to try and pick up the onside kick.
Oh, what a dunce.
Yeah. By the way, while the game was going on, at one point, East Carolina had a 4th and 10. They went for it. The quarterback rushed out of the pocket and had a nice 3-yard scramble.
On 4th and 10.
Yeah, not the play I think that they drew up.
No, not usually what you're going for there. Unfortunately for him.
No. I don't know if 10 points to Temple is enough to be considered a moral victory, but ECU scrapped hard at times. They look way better now than they ever did against their previous. They look way better now than they ever did under their previous coach.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to end tonight's show. So, on behalf of our own offensive coordinator, the coach, Corey Burton, here in the Music City, and our untraveled blogger from Big Ten and Counting, Josh Cook, up there in the Windy City, this is the professor in Nashville saying so long, and see you next time on the Illegal Motion College Football Podcast.
Yabba dabba doo.
Thanks for listening to the Illegal Motion College Football Podcast. To get in touch with the show, email us at illegalmotionpodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at illegal_motion and check out our Facebook page.